Mohammed Kudus is being linked with a move away from West Ham now, a move to Arsenal. This is just coming out recently today that Arsenal are lining up a move for Kudus as their top replacement for Leonardo Trossard, who could be heading to Saudi Arabia in January for just £40 million. And should Trossard leave, the Gunners could be willing to pay up to £90 million for the Ghanaian international. That's reporting of the Mirror. So again, these are all rumours at the moment, but it's not good that this type of news is coming out about one of West Ham's star players. Obviously, was integral to the success that we did see last season. I think Kudus integrated quicker than most fans thought he would when he adjusted to the Premier League, and immediately stood out from the crowd within our squad. And look, it hasn't worked out for him so far this season. Obviously, the red card at Tottenham kind of exemplifies that. And we need to make sure that we get the best version of Kudus back when he is back from his suspension. And look, I think there's a few different factors and a few different reasons as to why Kudus has been underperforming so far this season when we saw such a stark contrast last season. And it comes down to a few different things that we're going to kind of analyze. And let's see if it's actually worth selling Kudus for £90 million. That's going to be the main discussion, really, because it's an awful lot of money for a player that's had, a very solid season at West Ham last year, hasn't really performed this season. And, when you're talking about an overall investment into a squad, £90 million is a hell of a lot of money. But I think one of the let's start with Kudus this season and analysing his performances, because obviously only 2 goals in the Premier League so far this year. Hasn't been good, really. We haven't seen the Kudus that we saw last season that was, extremely direct, extremely positive. I think he's tried to be, and he has done that in moments throughout this season, but it hasn't been consistent enough. And I just think it becomes from the overall issues that we have in our squad right now. I mean, when you look at Kudus's heat map from this season, the majority of the games he's played in the Premier League so far has come from the left-hand side, playing as that left winger. We know that's probably his weakest position of the front four when you're talking about the number 10 position, the centre forward position, right wing, left wing. We're kind of minimizing his strengths as a football player by playing him on that left hand side, because he's naturally left footed. He's naturally someone that likes to pick up those half pockets of space on the right hand side, so he can dribble and cut inside and get shots off and create from the right hand side. It'd be the same with Jared Bowen if we stuck him out on the left hand side for us, playing for us. We wouldn't see the same Jared Bowen as we would if he was on the right hand side. And it's the same that applies with Kudus. I've always said his best position would come as kind of the advanced number 8 on the right hand side. If we were playing a 4-3-3, you have your holding 6, and then you have your kind of advanced 8, or number 10 on the left and advanced 8 and number 10 on the right. Similar to what Arsenal have done over the past few years, similar to what Man City have done over the last few years. So I still think that's Kudus's best position. We haven't really seen Mo Kudus in that position for West Ham. It's mainly been on the right-hand side under David Moyes, and it's mainly been on the left-hand side under Julian Lopetegui. So we haven't really seen Kudus in what I would consider his natural best position. However, that's not to say he's extremely talented at playing on the not extremely talented at playing over on the right-hand side, because he is. I think he would be a really effective right winger for West Ham if Jared Bowen wasn't there. And I I empathize with Julian Lopetegui for putting him out on the left-hand side? Slightly. I still think there's better ways of implementing Mo Kudus into this squad. I still think there's room for him to play centrally, alongside someone like Paqueta with Alvarez at the pivot. Look, there's deeper issues at West Ham than this right now, but Mo Kudus being linked away for £90 million is not surprising based on the performances he had last season. I think I'm surprised that it's come at this point in kind of the season. We're only just into November, and we're starting to see links for our key players being moved away from West Ham, which is never a good sign. And it's very clear that Mo Kudus hasn't been happy on that football pitch this season. I don't think he particularly enjoys playing out on the left. We've already seen issues with him and Lopetegui when he was, taken off at halftime against Brentford after a pretty poor performance. But again, playing out on the left-hand side, it just doesn't seem to be working under Lopetegui. And that can be said not just for Mo Kudus, that can be said for West Ham United Football Club. So there's deeper issues than that. But with Kudus, I think the number one issue we've had this season is we are not maximizing his strengths. And that goes for a number of players that we've seen so far this season. We're going into this transition period. We know Kudus was extremely effective under David Moyes when we were playing this transition counter-attacking football, because that is exactly what Kudus plays like. He's a direct dribbler. He will take people on. He will run into space. He's dynamic. He's excellent in tight situations. And usually he's pretty strong on the ball. It's very hard to get the ball off Mo Kudus. When you're playing him on the left-hand side in a system where, the build-up's very slow, we allow teams to get back in. We're not really direct. We don't have that transitional threat anymore, especially playing Kudus on the left-hand side in that situation. You're going to see performances like we have seen because you're just completely nullifying his strengths as a player and just playing into your opposition's hands. Now, we don't have these technical players in the final third to be able to, play tiki-taka football on a regular basis and break teams down by moving them side to side and finding gaps. We just don't have enough players that can do that. Our key strengths so far, and we have seen over the last few years, is transitions, fast, counters. That's how we've got our success. So it's a massive shock that we're trying to transition into this new way of playing under Lopetegui. I understand he's trying to implement a style, but you have to get the balance right. And the balance hasn't been there so far this season. And players like Kudus are having a negative impact because of that. Am I going to completely blame it on Lopetegui and the way West Ham are structured this season? No. Kudus needs to take some individual responsibility for that. The red card at Tottenham is the perfect example of what you shouldn't do as a footballer. You have to keep professional. I'm assuming his free game ban is going to be extended. I think there's rumours that they're still discussing that within the FA and the Premier League. So we'll have to see what happens with that. But look, I have no doubt that Mo Kudus has the ability to be one of the best players in the Premier League, let alone for West Ham. So look, £90 million, that as a fee, would I take it right now? Absolutely. £90 million for a footballer is ridiculous price. This, especially for someone that isn't English. We saw Declan Rice go for £100 million with, 4, 5, 6 years of Premier League experience. And Mo Kudus has had one very good season at West Ham, but this year it just hasn't worked out for him. Do I think he's worth £90 million? No, I don't think there are many footballers worth £90 million on the market, that, especially that West Ham could go and buy. But a team like Arsenal would probably pay it, as we saw with Declan Rice spending £100 million. And it'll be interesting to see if this rumour intensifies now. Edu's going to be departing at Arsenal. But look, Kudus in an Arsenal team, again, do I see him working / where would he play? I really do believe his best position would be in that number 10 position or the advanced 8 where, say, an Odegaard would play for Arsenal. I just think they missed that transition or that kind of piece between it. And we miss it as well. When we play our midfield three right now, it's usually a combination of these 4 or 5 players. You've got Alvarez, Guido, Souček, Paqueta, Soler. Those 5 players are extremely slow. They're not players that will make things happen, or, Paqueta's probably the only exception that will try and make things happen in that midfield, but it's not direct. It's someone that's, waiting and trying to play that dink pass over the top of a back line, or, trying to do something creative on the ball, not off his own doing, but his, creative ability on the ball. Kudus is slightly different to that. He can make something happen in those, half spaces really, really effectively because of how good he is at dribbling and how well he performs in tight spaces, which is why I think isolating him out on the left-hand side, under what he has done so far for Julian Lopetegui, isn't the solution. It really isn't. I think we'd see the best Mo Kudus more centrally, drifting over to the right-hand side as kind of that advanced 8-10, finding the pockets between midfield and defence, and again, linking play between midfield and attack, because we don't currently have that player. You look at a front 4 of, say, Paqueta as the false 9 with Kudus in behind, Bowen on the right, and Somerville on the left. That's extremely dynamic. You've got players that can play in tight spaces. You've got Paqueta, who can play as a false 9 and hold things up and link play with Kudus, and they almost act as a pivot between them. And you would just see a lot more success, in my opinion, and you would get the best out of your strongest players, and you would nullify the weaknesses that you currently have within your squad. And look, this is going on to a longer kind of divergent topic, but Mo Kudus for £90 million would be, you can't really say no to that, but just because of the amount of money we'd have at our disposal to continue to rebuild our squad, whether that's going to be under Julian Lopetegui, whether that's going to be under a new manager, I don't know. Time will tell. My prediction is it won't be under Julian Lopetegui if that does happen. So look, £90 million for Mo Kudus from Arsenal it would be a fantastic deal for West Ham to get £90 million on a player that we spent, less than £40 million on just over a season ago. I'd be gutted to lose Kudus because he's a fantastic player and I think he'd do really, really well at Arsenal. But £90 million is £90 million. You can't really snub that at all. Do I think that it's going to happen? Probably not, to be honest. I don't think Arsenal would go and spend £90 million, especially in January, even if they did get £40 million for Trossard from a club in January. I don't think that would happen. I don't think we've seen many January transfer windows that have been of that kind of ilk or that amount in terms of the size of the fee. And I don't know if, I mean, again, it depends on what the managerial situation is at West Ham. We may have a new manager. We may, be performing better on the pitch. We may be playing Kudus in a different position to what we've currently got him at. So there's loads of different nuances to what could happen here. But my personal opinion on the whole topic is this: Julian Lopetegui hasn't maximized Kudus' strengths enough. Kudus has to take some individual responsibility as well, because look, he has tried hard this season, but he just hasn't been playing well enough. And the red card incident at Tottenham Hotspur, you can't really brush aside what happened there. We're doing the same with Edson Alvarez and his red cards and his behavior. We have to treat Mo Kudus the same. You can't do that in the Premier League. You can't put your club under that type of pressure, because he's a really integral part of our squad and first 11. So he has to take some individual kind of accountability for that. And lastly, we just need to see Kudus playing with confidence again, and in a structure and a team that benefits his potential as a player, because we haven't currently seen that. But look, we'll see what happens with this one, whether Arsenal kind of make the move on Kudus. I think it would be a good signing for them. Do I think he's worth £90 million? No. But that is the price you pay for, top quality footballers now in the market. And you see some of the types of players' fees that are going around at the moment. £90 million for Kudus wouldn't look out of place, let's be honest. So, yeah, let me know down below in the comments what you think about the whole Kudus links to Arsenal situation, and just Kudus's kind of general performances so far this season in a West Ham shirt, because as I've mentioned, I think he's being played out of position, which is inhibiting his performances, but he also needs to take some of that responsibility himself. But you may have a different opinion. So yeah, let me know down below in the comments. Leave a like on the video if you enjoyed, as always. Subscribe to the channel for more content coming out for the rest of this year and into 2025. And yeah, until the next one, come on, you irons.